Many people see Twitter as a great way to keep in touch. Others call it a complete waste of time. Richard Glover is a broadcaster and communicator. Gary Brack is the Chief Executive of the Australian Federation of Employers and Industries. Welcome to you both. So, Richard Glover, first of all, what do you make of Twitter?
I just think it is a waste of time. It seems to be designed so that you have to have messages that are entirely inconsequential. You're limited to 140 characters. You can't say, I refuse to believe you can have a serious conversation in that length of time. And the whole idea of it is you update constantly. So, the idea is you say, here I am eating my breakfast. Here I am running for the bus. Here am I just missing the bus because I just paused to send you that Twitter. I mean, it's just this sort of updating of the trivia of your lifetime. I don't quite understand the appeal.
I gather from that you're not a Twitterer, Richard. Let's turn to Gary Brack from the Australian Federation of Employers and Industries. Gary Brack, do you worry that employees are just spending too much time on Twitter, or could Twitter actually be a useful business tool?
Well, there's always an issue about loss of time. But you can go back beyond email. Just the humble telephone once upon a time was a serious issue for employers and employees using business phones for personal purposes. So this is just a new iteration of the sorts of things that can occupy people's minds when they really ought to be working. So yes, it is a problem. No, it doesn't look like there's a great business usage for it. Unless, of course, businesses are able to send their message in 140 characters. A fairly difficult kind of proposition, I think.
But it is a good way to get direct access to shareholders, isn't it? And bypass the media, the gatekeepers, if you like.
Well, I think businesses are probably looking at all sorts of angles. If there is one here that's useful, then I'm sure that they'll use it. But I think probably it's more something for those who are the suppliers of a service like Telstra, and others who may be able to gain financial advantage out of supplying this facility rather than the business end of it, where they've got more serious messages to provide.
So, Richard Glover, you posed the question, what is the drive behind Twitter? Why is this need for constant communication?
Well, I think it's just a fad. I think Gary's right to emphasise how much so many of these things are so similar to things in the past. When I was 14 years old, I signed up to the Elvis Presley newsletter, which was sent out to me from Blackburn, Lancashire, or Blackpool, I think, Lancashire, every week. And that was, a Gestetner copy. This is, a lot of Twitter is just people, for some reason I don't understand, giving their email address or their telephone number, their mobile phone number, to celebrities who then send them what are virtually press releases every 5 minutes. It's an old application in a way for which people they're getting fun out of doing it for 5 minutes. But it's hard to imagine that it won't just be the hula hoop of 2009, that we'll look back at this moment and there are killer applications. I think YouTube is a killer application. Skype is a killer application. They'll be around in 10 years' time. But some of this other stuff will just be the detritus of 2009. It will be the K-Tel record selector of our time. We'll move on, surely.
But do you not fear that in saying that it's a fad, that you risk being put in the same basket as the people who said colour television won't catch on?
No, I'm very confident that this will all sort itself out. I think it's amazing the way the addition of a mobile phone at the moment seems to make things amazingly sexy. If you added a mobile phone to a hula hoop, people would think it was the best thing in the world. Watching a sitcom at home on broadcast television seems to be very daggy these days, and yet watching exactly the same sitcom on the bus on your mobile phone and paying for the privilege is somehow makes you dissolve in a lather of sexual excitement. Now, I don't understand the difference, and I'm sure once the novelty passes, people will realise that, paying to watch Seinfeld on the 383 is not the greatest use of your time in the whole world.
Gary Brack, finally, is Twitter a fad?
Oh, well, I think there's a generational issue, isn't there? And younger kids are used to having headphones on all the time, whether it's music or some short message. If you went back a little way, it was Messenger, courtesy of Microsoft, and that was constantly available. Here's a much shorter term proposition for young kids to talk about doing something on the bus. But I have to say that if there's a generational divide, I'm part of it. Sending a message that doesn't have any real substance to it and wasting your time when you could be reading the newspaper or listening to the ABCs doesn't seem to be a good alternative.
Richard Glover and Gary Brack, thank you both for your time and for your thoughts.
Thanks, Rise.
Cheers.